Hey guys, welcome to the Foundry podcast. This is episode number 7, and today I'm joined by MacKenzie Carter. He's a gunnery sergeant with the USMC, the Marine Corps, and he's involved in our Jiu-Jitsu program here at the Foundry. So, before we begin, MacKenzie, tell us about yourself.
So MacKenzie Carter, born and raised in Carrollton, Georgia. Worked a little bit as a sales manager at a metal company right out of high school, and quickly realized that there's just a little bit more in life that I wanted to experience, which led me to United States Marine Corps. I joined back in January 20th, 2015. Went to Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Paris Island. 2nd Battalion Hotel Company, graduated April 17th, and just been doing that ever since. So other than that, married, beautiful wife, beautiful daughter, just living life now.
You just got promoted recently, right?
Yeah, I did. February 1st, promoted to Gunnery Sergeant.
Awesome.
Right a little over 9 years. It's pretty quick, but Gunnery Sergeant now. I work on Paris Island. As a drill instructor, and I have additional MOSs, like the martial arts instructor trainer within the Marine Corps martial arts program, or MCMAP. So
Awesome, man.
yeah.
So I've been doing work with the Marine Corps for quite a while. Obviously, being in Beaufort, you are everyone in town has some sort of attachment or connection to the Marine Corps. I think
Absolutely.
being here. So, but I've been obviously teaching martial arts for a long time, and I've seen some of the guys from, the IT program there, instructor trainer program, the martial arts program. What do you think that program brings to Marines who, are looking to get into martial arts?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Marine Corps martial arts program, not just because I'm a martial arts instructor trainer through MCMAP, but the Marine Corps martial arts program is it's a weapon-based program, right? And it teaches a lot of hand-to-hand combat and close quarters. But I think the disciplines really set it apart. You have mental, physical, character disciplines, and it really challenges Marines to mature in those aspects. Through MCMAP, there's a lot of training that you don't really get like a second opportunity, right? If you make a mistake, we train with like life or death in mind, right? So if you make a mistake, there's sometimes no coming back from that.
Sure.
Certain actions you just can't take back. Once you make a decision, you move forward, you can't go back, right? So I think through the MCMAP Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, really challenges a lot of the Marines to really think about their next move, strategic. So
how long have you been in the Marine Corps martial arts program?
So I've been doing MCMAP for almost 8 years now. That is little Lance Corporal Carter as a tan belt, right? Training to get my gray, green, brown, black belt. I became a martial arts instructor, which is the first level of teaching MCMAP, probably 2016, I'd say. I was a martial arts instructor, just teaching Marines to their current belts for about 3 years, and then I went to the martial arts instructor trainer course up in Quantico, Virginia, back February 8th of 2020, and been doing martial arts instructor trainer stuff ever since.
Gotcha. So in the Marine Corps martial arts program, I know it's a little bit different than Army Combatives program, and I'm sure some of the other branches have their own form of self-defense training, but in the Marine Corps martial arts program, can you talk a little bit about the belt program, the belt system that they use there?
Yeah, so the first belt, tan belt, is a graduation requirement for recruits going through Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Paris Island, or San Diego. It's one of the graduation requirements to become a Marine. After that, you get through the little pipeline, MCT, ITB, or their schoolhouse. you're in the fleet, you find a martial arts instructor, a martial arts instructor trainer, and they can conduct belt advancements. You have gray, green, brown, and black. One of the big things too that we try to focus on is like the escalation of force, knowing when and where to apply certain techniques. Knowing that it is important to be lethal, sure. But at the same time, understanding universal value of life. I don't deserve to be here any more than you do.
Sure.
And just because I disagree or we get into a minor altercation doesn't mean I need to go apply certain techniques that could end up, placing you in a hospital or a grave, right?
Yeah.
So each belt has a level of maturity expected to it, which the martial arts instructor or martial arts instructor trainer, since they're considered the subject matter expert, it's on them to assess the Marines and, make sure that they are, in fact, mature enough to learn certain techniques. But the way I kind of see it at the lower levels, you really learn more like self-defense, how to protect yourself as you progress through the belts. You start learning like not only protecting yourself, but how you can protect other people, how to apply certain techniques to either gain space and distance between you and your adversary or, placing them in a position that's going to give you the advantage point over your aggressor. And, of course, once you get into like brown and black belt, those are more lethal techniques, sure. Causing serious bodily harm or death.
How many Marines go through the full belt program? Percentage-wise?
Wow.
Like 2%, 1%?
No, so I think going through from 10 belt all the way up to black.
It's got to be a low number, I would imagine, considerably.
You would think,
yeah.
But through just like the belt user levels, 10 to black, I think it's a pretty high number. I don't know statistics, sure. So I don't want to give a number and sound crazy. But when you start talking about, Marines taking more interest in the program and want to become a martial arts instructor, those numbers start to drop. And then from there, signing up to go through the MEIT course, the martial arts instructor trainer course, which is it's a little bit longer. The martial arts instructor course is about 3 weeks, and the martial arts instructor trainer course is 7 weeks. So the transition from martial arts instructor to martial arts instructor trainer, again, those numbers start to drop too.
Oh, of course. And it's a more intense program too.
Yeah. It is definitely more intense, doing a lot more training because at this point, you're transitioning from martial arts instructor to martial arts instructor trainer, and you're really the subject matter expert. Yeah. Consider the subject matter expert for the program. Once you graduate, you go back to your command. You are the representative for the program in that command. So, they really make sure you understand.
You got to know it.
Yeah, what the program is trying to teach, that the purpose, and how to conduct yourself in that role. So, yeah.
Did you do any martial arts before joining the Marine Corps?
I did. I don't really like claiming a lot of it.
Sure.
When I was like 5 or 6, I did karate for a couple of years. And I think some of the tournaments I think there were like more shows, right? Yeah. Like going out there and doing the
the forms and everything.
Yeah, a lot of the forms. If anybody does karate, I'm sorry if I'm embarrassing it. But yeah, so I did that for a little bit. And then, I think family just wanted to go in a different direction. And it wasn't until my sophomore year of high school, I did 1 season of wrestling. And wasn't the greatest at it, but in my weight class, I wrestled at 103. And the guy, we would have wrestle-offs.
Yeah,
and this guy would beat me all the time. And he would take the spot on varsity. And for some reason, before the matches, he was injured or something, and then coach would throw me in. And so I have like little experience going up against, varsity guys. And so I did the 1 season there. And I didn't really get back into martial arts until the Marine Corps martial arts program.
Gotcha.
And but martial arts outside of the Marine Corps, it was about last year. I came over to the Foundry and I started doing some training. I was able to get a competition in. I did pretty well there. But yeah, it was the Marine Corps martial arts program that really sparked that passion and love that I have for just martial arts in general.
So you feel like until you joined the Marine Corps and started going through the martial arts program, that's what made you want to do jiu-jitsu and other things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Marine Corps martial arts program was able to open my eyes that, things in this world are going to happen. And a lot of it, we have no idea.
Sure.
And kind of, like the famous saying, right? It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And through MCMAP, we have our belts and we have techniques that we teach and we train. And but to really expand your arsenal, right? To expand like your wisdom and how you conduct yourself. We always encourage other Marines, martial arts instructors, martial arts instructor trainers, to go out and, find other types of martial arts that you can really hone your skills in, perfect certain things. And not to just, pick one, but to, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very important. Boxing is very important. I tell my students all the time, try to take, the first 15, 30 seconds, really however much time you can to assess your opponent, right? Because knowing your opponent allows you to defeat your opponent.
Exactly.
If they come out and they're trying to throw a lot of hands, they're a boxer, right? So I'm not trying to teach, or I'm not trying to fight my best fight. I'm trying to fight your worst fight. If you're a boxer, I'm going to try to take you to the ground where you're not comfortable. If you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all the time, I'm going to try and keep it standing, right?
Sure.
Because that's where I have a better chance. I'm going to identify your weakness and exploit it. So
that's one of the things I like about the Marine Corps, especially the IT program, is that the emphasis that you said to train outside of just the Marine Corps. And I think that, any formalized program in martial arts that's based on, like, what people don't understand about Marine Corps martial arts or any martial arts that's related to combat is you don't have a lot of time to prepare. Like you said, you got to be ready at all times, right? So you're going through boot camp. You have 13 weeks in boot camp or whatever, and then after that you become Marine. You have to learn your skills for your job that you're going to have. You have to, deploy. You have all these different things going on, and so, I like that the Marine Corps offers that program, that self-defense aspect of it. But I really like the fact that, they understand that as an instructor trainer, as someone who's going to be the leader of these classes, of these programs, that there's there's more to be gained than just the base curriculum.
Right.
And I think that's an awesome thing. And I mean, I've talked to quite a few different instructor trainers over the years and had them come through my program here. And, it's the same kind of passion you're talking about once they get in there, especially after going through IT program where it's like you kind of get, it's like a second boot camp in some capacities, right?
Yeah.
It's like you get beaten down a little bit and then they build you back up. And I think, my style of training is very similar to that in our MMA program, jiu-jitsu program. You're going to get kind of humbled as a new person in the program.
Absolutely.
And then as you get better skills and everything, you grow up and you're like, okay, the man I am now is superior to the man I was when I first came in here and thought I was something. And now I realize I'm not really, everything I need to be or anything I could be yet, but I'm getting to the point where I need to be, And so I think that's definitely a good aspect of it. Like I was saying, I noticed that a lot of people, even in the Marine Corps, sometimes might look down on the Marine Corps martial arts program because they're like, well, it doesn't even teach this technique or doesn't teach that technique. But when you have that short time span you have that short amount of time to teach somebody. You got to give them the basics. You got to get them interested. You got to keep them, connected. And
Absolutely.
And I mean, they might not ever need to use it, especially if they're, doing wiring or something for the jets. They might not be in a combative situation where they have to take someone down and use hand-to-hand combat, but it's still good to have that, early seed planted.
Yeah. Well, as, one thing, I don't know if all Marines go out saying this, but, a lot of Marines do. And the idea, right, is anywhere I go, people are safer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not, forward deployed in war combat or anything. You see something going down at Walmart, right? Like people are safer just because I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very important to know stuff, protect yourself, those around you. And like you said, a lot of people, especially a lot of Marines.
More Marines, because non-Marines don't know.
Yeah, right? They wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of the Marines, their passion about MCMAP, I would say, is absence because of what they see really through recruit training, the 10 belt, which is the lowest belt, right? It really covers a lot of the fundamentals, the basics, because we can't just assume that everybody coming into the Marine Corps knows.
I'd say very few percentage.
It is very few. Talking to the Marines that just finished the Crucible, a lot of them, they'll have questions about the program, and I'll ask them, who's done martial arts before? And, maybe a quarter will raise their hand. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, I thought MCMAP was kind of boring. And I'm like, well, it's because you're learning a lot of the stuff or covering a lot of the stuff that you already know. Mm-hmm. But we have to get everybody on the same page.
For sure.
And then start to build upon that. But the biggest thing is the foundation. Mm-hmm. Even though like in Tempo, we teach how to make forward angle movements, how to move backwards, to the left, to the right, which, I mean, that stuff is critical. If you can control the space and distance between you and your opponent, you're pretty much in control of the fight because you're determining when you can touch them and when they cannot touch you. Mm-hmm. So just a lot of the basics is very important. But yeah, they see that and they're like, oh, I'm not learning anything new, so I'm not going to go waste my time. And if they would have just, press on a little bit, they would start learning more dynamic techniques.
Sure.
So,
how does the Marine Corps present it to Marines that are interested in MCMAP? Is it? I know that there's required belts, especially in certain ranks. You have to have required belts. But is something the Marine Corps promotes that all of the Marines go through to black, or is that something that you as a Marine have to push your command to get that program?
So, right now, there are certain rank restrictions to certain belts. Because again, certain belts, it's expected to have a certain maturity level.
Sure.
And if you have some 17, 18-year-old right out of high school learning a lot of these lethal techniques, and their maturity level doesn't match up with their lethality, that could be a combination or a recipe for disaster, right? Mm-hmm. So there are restrictions on the belts now. A junior Marine can go up to green. Once they become a non-commissioned officer, they can get their green belt as a corporal. And then when you promote to sergeant, you're able to go for your black belt. And the way the Marine Corps looks at it, right? If they can trust you enough to promote to that rank, you have that maturity level, so you can go and meet with that lethality. To where when I first joined, I went from a tan belt, gray, green, brown, black, within a year. I was a black belt as a lance corporal. So things are a little different now. But as far as promoting as a martial arts instructor or martial arts instructor trainer, we're expected to conduct a certain amount of training throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So it's our responsibility to go out and plan either a belt advancement or a martial arts instructor course. And once we have that signed off by the commanding officer, we'll give that to the S3 who's responsible for training. and then they'll disseminate that and push it out to all the sections in that command, saying, hey, there's going to be training from this date to this date. If your Marines are interested, come on out. And now for Marines, the martial arts program, whatever belt they are, does hold more weight to how competitive they are against their peers.
Sure.
To where it was a nice thing to have, in the past, but didn't hold a lot of weight. It does hold more weight now.
Well, it shows that desire,
Yeah, desire, initiative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The people who are putting the extra time in, I think, definitely deserve the opportunities, because obviously they're looking to improve themselves. And as a Marine, that's super important, to improve yourself over time.
Yeah. And, as a Marine too, we, one of our famous sayings, right? Like every Marine's a rifleman. We try to instill in every Marine that it's not just your job that you do in the Marine Corps, but you are a Marine and you have your specific MOS, right? So for me, I'm a photographer. I go around, I get attached to a unit, and I document whatever the Marine Corps is doing through photography. However, if things go south, I'm still expected as a Marine to know how to pick up my M16 and move forward, buddy rushing and taking out the adversary.
Mm-hmm.
So MCMAP is a way of showing that you're not just proficient at your job, but you're also proficient as a Marine. So yeah, it's really important.
And knowing a lot of Marines over the years, even like infantry guys and stuff who've been in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth, a lot of people don't understand how much hand-to-hand combat there is in those combative situations, because especially, we don't line up in a straight line and shoot across the field anymore. It's in cities, it's in urban centers, there's debris, there's rubble, there's people that try to ambush you and come out of the sides, and you might not have time to use your weapon as required, or they might close the distance too quickly. So it's important to know how to defend from that close distance. But also, I think that's where some of the MCMAP gets a bad rap, is because people don't understand that that's what it's all about. It's about a secondary to your weapon. Weapon's primary, obviously, and then as they get in close, you have to disarm and disable your opponent.
Right.
And so, I think that, when you go into a martial arts program, jiu-jitsu, MMA, kickboxing, whatever it is, you need to have a program, a system in place, a curriculum, if you will, that allows people to progress over time. But there's always going to be certain things, like even in jiu-jitsu class, somebody will come up, I'll show maybe a shoulder lock or something like that, and they'll be like, well, what if I do this? What if I do this? It doesn't mean it's not part of the curriculum. It just means this is what we're teaching today.
Right.
This is what I want you to learn. But yeah, there's other alternatives. There's other opportunities. You can transition that shoulder lock into an arm lock, or attack the elbow, or you can turn it into a choke, or you can turn it into a position or a reversal. But, the initial importance is, okay, this guy comes around the corner, you're within arm's distance, you got to be able to deflect and block, get him to the ground, strike.
Absolutely.
And then create some space so you can use your weapon. And so it's good to give that little progression and series. Speaking of that, obviously, we haven't, as a nation, been involved in as big a conflict as Iraq or Afghanistan in the last couple of years. Have you been in combat zones or anything since you've been in the Marine Corps?
No. Luckily, I'm blessed to not have been in any type of actual combat. There's been plenty of training that I have been able to partake in. I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, on Camp Hansen, and temporarily I was with the 31st MU. And from there, we went out to the South China Sea, and I got to hang out with reconnaissance Marines, and they did some exercises, training to make sure that, when the time comes, that they are proficient in their job. And again, as a photographer, my role was to document everything that they were doing. So everywhere they went, I was right next to them. every movement they made, every gear they carried. I was right there next to them, just taking photos. So, yeah, that's a lot of the, training that I've been able to be a part in.
But those kind of guys they're not like your normal everyday Marines.
No, they're not. They're not. The first like 4 or 5 days hanging out with them, it was pretty rough because I wasn't a recon Marine.
Sure.
So I had to kind of earn my place with them. And so what I would have to do is like the first hour and the last hour of whatever we were doing that day, I wouldn't touch my camera at all. If they were building their boats, I put my camera down and I would assist them and trying to show them that even though I'm not recon, I'm still a part of the team and that I'm more than willing to carry my weight.
Yeah.
It was like around day 4 or 5, like they came up to me and they were wearing frogs, which is a special type of uniform. And I wasn't issued frogs. They came up to me. They're like, "Hey man, do you have a set of frogs?" I was like, "No, I don't." They're like, "Here you go. Wear these." And so I felt like that was my way of being accepted into the group that I was with. But yeah, they different type of Marines for sure.
Yeah. Do you still keep in contact with any of those guys?
Yeah, there's a couple. They're out doing their thing,
Sure.
but every now and then, either I'll post something or they'll post something. We have photos from that time, and it'll pop up. Oh, you have a memory for 3 years ago, and we'll tag each other like, you remember this, and yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So you went to the IT school up in Quantico, correct?
Yeah, Quantico, Virginia, in February.
Oh,
it's freezing cold.
Cold or hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, February is always. If you guys haven't been to Virginia in February, it's not like South Carolina here.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
So when I went to the course, I was actually stationed in Japan. So they flew me from Okinawa, Japan, to Quantico. And I checked in, and then the next day we started. So the first couple of days of the martial arts instructor trainer course was pretty difficult, being jet lagged and time zones. It was rough.
It's very physical too.
Very physically demanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not like sitting in a classroom the whole time.
No,
for sure.
No. We do have our classroom setting, period of instructions, but the one thing that I really appreciated about the IT course is they had scenario-based training. And the goal was to take a Marine and place them in a situation or a scenario that they had no idea what was going to happen. And it really shows a Marine's character, their decision-making process.
For sure.
Just how you would naturally respond in that situation. And the MACE, the Martial Arts Center of Excellence at Quantico, Virginia, they did a phenomenal job of making these scenarios very realistic. Like they would do a phenomenal job getting you fatigued, so now you're not in a comfort state. And they would tell you to go in the mat room and whatever you think you need to do it. You're like, that's all the information I get. And you open the door and they turn the mat room from just a room of mats to looking and feeling exactly like a gas station. And some of the instructors were wearing civilian attire, and you're like, what is going on? And, as the scenario plays out, you're like, oh, I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Sure.
And something else would happen, and you're like, oh, I need to do this. And so it is it was very good training. And that's kind of what really opened my eyes to, I need to know as much as possible, because when things pop off, you don't know which way it's going to go. Like in a fight, you don't know if it's going to be standing the whole time or if you're going to the ground. So you need to know both. But.
And now that you do jiu-jitsu, what do you think I'm not going to say the benefits of MCMAP. Obviously, there's benefits there, but that training that you had, has that prepared you a little bit better, you think, for jiu-jitsu training? Or mentally at least?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. There's through MCMAP, right? We do train with there's no second chance, right? Normally in your traditional martial arts, you're training to, if you're doing like competition, right? Like how to score points, how to win the match. And martial, in meaning more of a like warfare, right? And Marine Corps martial arts program, we're not training to win a competition. We're training to win that that situation,
survive or overcome.
Yeah, and so I think the mentality is a little bit different, and carrying that over and taking everything that I learned through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, very serious, because that could be the thing that could save my life. If I end up in a hand-to-hand fight with an adversary and we end up on the ground, I don't want to make any mistakes.
Exactly.
Right. And so
the stakes are much higher, obviously, than in competition.
Absolutely. And again, in our training, we try to incorporate that thought process, right? Like, I remember I was training with this one Marine, Ed Inslee, we were doing this, this WEF, right? This PT, and he had to low crawl from one cone to the other cone. And at first, he was kind of moving slow. And me and another martial arts instructor trainer, we were right next to him, and we started like painting the scenario in his head. And he had to like buy into what we were saying, right? But we're saying, oh, if you don't make it to this cone by this time, right, like something's gonna happen to your family, right? Like, and we're just like painting this. There's no option or opportunity for failure. You have to do this. There's no other choice. And he bought into it and covered almost the entire football field in like a minute, just low crawling. So we try to buy into the training, and just the thought process and mentality is a little bit different for sure.
But since you have competed in jiu-jitsu, I mean, I've competed numerous times, and I feel that while there is the point setting, my martial arts instructor, when I was new into MMA and jiu-jitsu and everything, he actually did not prefer his students to compete because he came from that background. Okay. He had been involved in the Marine Corps with line training back before MCMAP became like the Marine Corps martial arts program. And so he was involved in line training, and it's kind of the same mentality, teach certain techniques in a progression to help in scenario training and things like that. But he would always tell his students, including myself, I don't see that competition is as realistic as a fight where you need to defend yourself, especially with your life. And so he said, I think that you can get some bad habits from training for competition, but as an instructor myself, as somebody who's been involved in many years, I think the competition mentally and physically is tremendous. And I know not everyone wants to compete,
right?
Who trains, and you don't have to compete in order to learn a skill like jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or whatever. But you definitely need to get that, on the mat competition, the sparring, the grappling, whatever. But since you have competed, do you feel that has benefited you from the mindset if you were to have to defend yourself?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the benefits of like competing, you're going up against somebody that you don't know.
Sure.
Right. You have no idea what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, which most of the time, like if you're at a gym or if you're doing MCMAP or whatever, you have a pretty good idea of the individuals that you're around, right? Coming here to the Foundry, I know certain individuals are really, really good, And I know that that's going to be an opportunity for me to learn, or other individuals to where I can really perfect, my techniques.
Sure.
But yeah, going to a competition, it is I think a pretty good opportunity to test yourself, with that mentality of I have 5 minutes to secure this, to defeat my opponent, right? And you really have to, figure out what's the best strategic way to, beat your opponent or your adversary, right? And so I think competition is a great opportunity. You're exposing yourself to someone that you're not familiar with, which would be the exact same thing, out in town or across seas, right? So
Yeah, and I think it's also the point of, like you said, you don't know much about the situation, but even though it's not survival based, it's important to have control. And if you can nullify their attacks, and that's a skilled opponent as compared to a non-skilled opponent too. That's the way I've always looked at like mixed martial arts competition as well. Like, and that's how I teach self-defense to like women's self-defense and kids and stuff like that too. Is like, if I'm teaching somebody how to beat somebody up, basically,
right,
who knows how to fight, I need to be very proficient with, how to counter certain techniques. What's the most common attacks you're going to see? What's the most common things that you have to defend against? In a cage setting, you have walls, you have floor, obviously. So you need to be able to work when you're pressed up against the floor, pressed up against the wall. It's not just you have infinite space to run from somebody or to escape from somebody.
right.
And that to me is like simulating we're in a room right now. If someone came in here and tried to attack us, pushed us up against the wall, we need to know how to deal with that, And so I think the MMA training is a good side of that. And as far as realism, obviously we can't eye gouge each other on the mat.
Right.
We could, but it wouldn't last very long. We'd come back maybe once.
Nobody would want to train with you.
Yeah, no biting and fish hooking and all that kind of stuff. We want to be, cordial to each other, but at the same time, that's always there. I think that kind of primal stuff it doesn't really need to be taught. But obviously a more advanced technique like a Imanari roll or something, you don't just know how to do that inherently typically. So you have to learn that kind of skill. But I think that for me and as a coach training guys for competition, I don't really enjoy the rules to the point systems from that aspect of self-defense, because I think it gets people complacent and putting themselves in positions that wouldn't be a great.
Yeah, it wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull guard in a street fight.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get on my back and try to sweep somebody if I can help it. But if you do find yourself there, it's amazing. And like Jeff Glover, he's a very proficient jiu-jitsu practitioner. He came here for a seminar last year. And what Jeff was saying, and I agree with him to some capacity, is jiu-jitsu does work in self-defense, 100%. Because most people in self-defense don't know anything about jiu-jitsu. They don't know anything about how to defend on the ground. Yeah. And we're talking about percentages of Marines, but Marines are such a small percentage of the population. And the people in the Marine Corps who are doing martial arts, a small percentage of the Marine Corps. And so, you look about, let's say there's 350 million Americans, right? Out of that, how many know how to do jiu-jitsu?
Right.
1%,
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5%, maybe 8% have wrestled at some point or done some kind of boxing or something like that. But if they really, are the type of person to attack you, are they martial artists? So the type of person who've been in a program that teaches self-discipline and confidence and, personal development, or are they the kind of person who maybe did a few classes, didn't work out for them, and so they're going the easy route.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think I'll probably butcher it. There's this little saying or quote that I heard one time that regarding Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It said, "I'm a shark, and the ground is the water, and most people don't know how to swim."
Exactly.
And I was like, that is so true. Yeah. And again, most people, they have no idea.
Exactly.
So being able to determine where that fight goes, It's just setting yourself up for success, making sure that you're in an advantageous position. So,
and I think that anybody who watches this who's interested in the Marine Corps or who's interested in martial arts, we would like you, if you're in Buford, obviously come to the Foundry.
yeah, come train.
Come train.
Yeah, come
But
out.
if you're not in Buford, or if you're in another location, or whoever watches this, get into a program, right? Get into something that gives you some basic elements. And there's certain technique, certain instructors to avoid. The people who lack humility, who lack accountability and things like that as an instructor, just like you would say in the Marine Corps, those type of people don't last to get to where you are.
Right.
But at the same time, there are people in the civilian world who can definitely deceive and put themselves in a position where they're better than they are, and they might teach people the wrong thing. But if you get in a good program, whether it's Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever it is, it's going to give you the foundation and the mindset to move forward. And you don't have to be a world champion to benefit from that.
Of course.
And it's just like Marines. I mean, a Lance Corporal who's been training in MCMAP for a short amount of time is going to be better prepared than someone who's not gotten anything,
Absolutely.
And so a little progression will help out. Now, there is a point where, you should try to, find a program that is giving you what you need out of it. So, I've done a lot of different types of martial arts. I've been training for a long, long time. I'm the type of person who, I try to pick up as much as I can from whoever I can. And that's I got that from my instructor. He was a Marine, went on fleet, he was in, I believe, Panama. It's going back there.
Yeah.
He's going to be on the podcast next week, so you'll get to see him. But he was in a couple different situations, maybe in Iraq at the beginning of that conflict. But what he dealt with is the fact that, you don't have consistent training in a gym like the Foundry when you're constantly deploying and going to different places. But what you do have is you have people from different parts of the country and the world even. So he trained a little Sambo from some Russian guys that were doing a exercise with them. He did some jiu-jitsu. He did some kickboxing, some boxing, and met some really good people that helped him get to that point. And I think that desire just of self-improvement, I took it upon myself, and I hope that all my students have the same thing. It's there's so much out there to learn from, and that's one of the reasons why here at the Foundry we have so many different things, because maybe you are a good boxer and you're like, hey, my deficiency's on the ground, then let's work the ground, like you were talking about before. Find out what your weaknesses are and take them away.
Right.
And get as consistent and as level as you can across the board. And so I think that that mindset, if somebody does watch us, is interested in martial arts, get involved, get into a program, come to the Foundry, try a class out, see if you like it. And if you don't like jiu-jitsu, try boxing, try MMA, try kickboxing. There's so many different things to work on. As far as your career, what's the next step for you now that you're a gunnery sergeant?
So first thing I'll have to do is finish my time as a drill instructor. I have 2.5 years or so left. After that, just wherever the Marine Corps needs me or wants to send me, that's kind of been my thought process. Sure. I absolutely love the Marine Corps, and it has been a great journey so far. And I'm just going to keep riding it out, and whatever they need me to do, I'm going to go in that direction and apply myself the best I can. Mission accomplishment, troop welfare, making sure things are taken care of. So,
is your daughter going to do jiu-jitsu?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it started out just me doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and now my wife, she's coming out, she's training. Yeah. And as soon as my daughter is of age, she will be thoroughly indoctrinated in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Exactly.
And she's just gonna think it's that everyone's supposed to do it. It's gonna be a natural part of her life, and hopefully she'll never question it. She'll just fall in love with it like I have. So,
well, I hope that if she's anything like my daughter is, quick story about my daughter. My son and daughter are a year apart, and they started training when they were 4.
Right.
Actually, Penelope was 3, Abe was 4. And they started at the same time, and we do like lots of little games and stuff with the young kids because, you know, they're not ready to do flying arm bars at 3 years old. Not quite. Maybe some.
Close, but not there
Not
yet.
yet. So we'll do different like skill building skills, like grab the big stability ball and try to pull it away from the other kids and try to keep their
Right.
balance instead of rolling over and all that kind of stuff. And then I love watching them, and then we'd go home and they'd be wrestling each other in the house, and
Yeah.
I think you gotta be careful, but I know enough to not let them hurt each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll never forget when she was, I think she was probably 10 years old. My son was 11. They're both in jiu-jitsu class, and this kid is in the class, and he was kind of a big boy. You know, he's not like, he was an adult, same age as my son, so he's 11, but a lot bigger than Penelope. And I'll never forget, like, he came after her all aggressively, and like, next thing I look over, she's on his back. She's got choke in. He's like freaking out, doesn't know what to do. He starts tapping, and like, I just looked at his face afterwards, and just he had no understanding how he could have got beat by this little 10-year-old girl. And like, she was definitely a lot lighter than him, at least 30, 40 pounds lighter than him at that age. And she just took him out pretty quickly. And that, to me, as a dad, it's good to have that mentality, you know, with your kids. So I really hope that, and I'm sure that'll be the case, where you guys wrestle around at home. And
Yeah, I think, you know, with her growing up in the house, seeing the passion that myself and my wife have for martial arts, and specifically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Sure.
I think, you know, she's probably going to fall right in line with that. You know, I'm going to go ahead and call it now. 20 years from now, she'll be a world champ.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Elizabeth Carter, world champ. I'm calling it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming in today and joining us, and I'll see you on the mats, man.
Yeah. Here in a couple of hours. Looking forward to it. I appreciate you having me out too. So.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and if you are interested in jiu-jitsu, Marine Corps, anything else, you know where to look. You can find us on our Facebook page, Instagram, and this has been MacKenzie Carter. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.